So according to an actual investor thesis, NTE has no 50-50. 100% it doesn't. But they're making it so that players are heavily encouraged towards 1+1 or 2+1 investment levels, meaning you gotta get a dupe for them because they're making it so that their kit just doesn't function. That C1 and C2, they're making it mandatory for the character to not feel like shit to play. And that's the cost of not having a 50-50. Not to mention the fact they're saying some shit over here about how the drop rate is roughly half of Mihoyo's system. Yeah, you need to get a dupe of the character because they really don't want you to hoard resources indefinitely. So they make S6 bad, they make C1 and C2 feel like must pulls, and so you gotta get 2 copies of every character on each release. House always wins, and that's the cost of a 50-50, but you'll have grifters like this telling you, well, just support them anyways. Isn't that amazing, bro? Ladies and gentlemen, we're revisiting a bit of a tender topic for the NTE player base, and that is, of course, the idea that the game has just sort of been plagiarizing other gachas since its whole goddamn release. And we all know from one of the most recent reveals of Zanko, their newest unit, right? Well, their kit is basically, it's got components that are a 1-to-1 rip from other gacha titles where you see her stealing Camellia's Forte Circuit, Ephemeral, and just performing that, even though her motif has nothing to do with flowers. Look, she even like blooms into like petals too, just like her. There are no flowers anywhere else in her kit, by the way. It's just they put this in for fun. She actually uses a giant sword and like makes fire. Like Mortonak's blade. So, like, she has flowers and fire, but really, it's just a bunch of components from other gacha games put into one unit because they thought a bunch of this shit looked cool and they've got no creativity of their own. And this is the thing. They've done it a bunch of times already. Obviously, the Cardathea ult over here with the same exact impact frames, they're a 1-to-1. Then you got Fraxidus and Fraxinus. Fraxinus is the one on the left, by the way, and this is Fraxidus over here. So you got that taken as well. Then you got the whole Camellia Ephemeral thing down here for more fun. Now you got Glizzy Rider as well. And then, of course, Zero, the MC's basic attack chain, just copy Zhang Liao's fucking, what's it called, entire flow. He's got a robot arm, she's just got a regular arm. She just shoots ionic particles for some reason, because I guess they needed to do that. You get what's happening over here, right? It's sort of like the rule of cool, or really like the rule of just stealing shit, right? Seems to be the main focus for these guys, and it's like, fuck it actually making sense in game. Let's just try to take as much shit as possible. And that's been the history of the game. But it turns out, ladies and gentlemen, that history goes back even further. And there's been a now deleted post from the Gaming Leaks and Rumors Reddit. We got access to a deleted post over here. And I'm starting to understand why it was deleted, because you can just read the title and you'll probably find out why. Perfect World's investment firms research meeting leak about NTE. Poaching devs from Kuro Games. The Perfect World Beijing Suzhou team civil war over release timings and analysis of competitors' gachas, censorship and Japan themed content, blah, blah, blah. But you can probably guess what the big one is over here. And the focus of our perusing of this article today, the poaching devs from Kuro Games side and that analysis over there. Because once you realize this and then you see this sort of like all this other stuff, how successful were they at poaching the devs? And because maybe they weren't as successful as they wanted with poaching the devs, did they just decide to copy the fucking game? Like, as much as they possibly fucking could without getting sued? Because that's kind of just what it feels like over here. And one last additional thing, Saint from the future over here, that's going to be covered in this video is, of course, the 50-50 in this game. Because as you probably could tell from that intro, good golly gee, they kind of just lied to everybody, didn't they? So let's go ahead. Let's get some of the context over here before we start diving into some of the specific details of this article. It's a long one, by the way. This comes from a recording of a closed-door meeting conducted by one of China's largest investment banks to assess whether or not to invest in Perfect World. So this is essentially like a conversation talking about the strategic sort of like benefits of acquiring or investing in Perfect World for a entity, a bank that has a shit ton of money. So Perfect World really wants investment from companies like this. However, it is not an internal Perfect World staff meeting. So it was shared in a WeChat group and a summary was posted on Chinese gaming forums, and the meeting dates back to January when Perfect World was preparing his third CBT and Enfield just came out. So this is like 7 months old. So naturally, a lot of the stuff that we're going to be seeing in here, it's going to be stuff that's already occurred, but there are some other things that are confirmed as well. Some claims had been rumored, right? and are confirmed here, including the whole Beijing Suzhou team infighting that they have, the firing of their lead art director, and Perfect World poaching developers from Kuro Games. So this is the part over here that we're just going to skip over. It's about core optimization progress of the game. I don't think this matters at all because the game already fucking came out. This is like stuff about adjusting the combat. I don't think any of this stuff matters too much. However, there's this part that I wanted to focus on. The team urgently recruited core members of Kuro Games' combat team. In the January 2026 version, they optimized issues including combat animation stiffness, running animations, camera work, and overall dynamism. Player reception improved somewhat, but combat depth and enemy interaction remain insufficient. So, a lot of people have described NTE's combat as like Wuwa's but worse. Does this explain why? It really just feels like Wuwa's but worse. Like Temu version of Wuwa combat. That's just what it feels like. Man, makes a ton of sense though, right? Doesn't it? Makes a ton of fucking sense. Now they have like all this stuff over here about like Unreal Engine and like frames. Like so shit like this is like kind of what tells me that this stuff is likely real, not like a fake leak, because it gets too much into like the actual like nitty gritty shit people aren't gonna fucking care about, but like the investment banks will. You get why I'm trusting this article now, right? It's getting into like the nitty gritty details, but I know half of you guys don't give a fuck about this, so that's why we're skipping it. Now we got stuff about the graphics. Again, I don't think this matters that much. Hopefully you guys understand why I'm skipping through parts of this article over here, because it's long as shit. And of course, it's a lot of technical jargon. Not really like jargon. You'll understand if you understand computers and games in general. But who cares about this shit? But now, this is the stuff that gets really interesting over here. And this is going to be the talk about Japan and Chinese-Japan relationships. This should probably relate back to Plain Arcadia, Wuthering Waves 2.8, a bunch of other updates that occurred during like the end of last year and the start of this year. I think this just lends even more credence to the accuracy of what's going on over here, right? Japan accounted for an exceptionally large share of revenue, including substantial revenue potential in the market. Deteriorating China-Japan relations are considered a potential risk. The team is currently paying close attention to public sentiment and is closely monitoring market development. You get what's going on over there, right? But now, the Korean market. It's another major focus. They've had some success before, but I don't think that they're actually that... yeah, I think this game has too many mini games, and there's not enough of an actual game for it to succeed in the Korean market. Yeah, I think this game failed in Korea, because, like, I don't know how... Like, just think about, like, the games Koreans play and, like, grind and want to be good at, and then think about NTE. Like, oh, I'm fishing and delivering... Anyways. And now we got Europe and North America. And as we all know, NTE has completely failed in North America. NTE has completely bombed in NA to the point where like the game doesn't like even exist on global. It's actually hilarious. It's also a week delayed on global, so maybe we'll hear some of the reasoning behind that. So players in Europe and North America have a high acceptance of combining anime style games with open world gameplay. Yes, because Wuwa, Genshin, so on and so forth, very popular in NA. Western players are accustomed to it. So basically this is them expecting to succeed really well, right? It's considered a high quality market with revenue potentially exceeding the game's performance in these regions during the Tower Fantasy era. They blew it. This is basically like the investment firms believe this game had a chance in North America and they fucking blew it. So I think the game, because they had such a high premise and a high promise over here, it's been a complete fucking failure in actuality. Now they got LATAM. Yeah, they don't fucking know. Yeah, they don't know. They got no clue. It's short because they don't fucking know. And now they got Southeast Asia, our sea men, the sea mans out there. It's a potential breakout market, and revenue could potentially reach a significant proportion of domestic, but it's neutral to pessimistic. Yeah, the poor reputation left by Tower Fantasy. So basically, the sins of TOF are like doing this game in C. It's funny to see the sort of like takeaways, right? It's funny to see the takeaways that these people had in January because they were completely right about some things and just off base on others. Just completely off about Korea and North America's reaction. Correct about Japan. But yeah, I don't think this game is that big in C, but I could be wrong. And now, this is where stuff is going to get really interesting. They've got like a disagreement over release timing. I don't really fucking care. Apparently these two guys like this is the reason why Global's like delayed a week. Basically, CN is pissed about how this game is being run. And I think the best way for us to describe how pissed CN is is like comments like this are becoming like the main sort of takeaway for a lot of people. They're viewing CN as a literal beta test for all of the other versions. This is a video in CN talking about the latest update, 35 plus bugs. Yeah, it's a 3-minute video talking about 35 plus bugs. This guy was mad. Read the NTE latest post comments. There's a bunch of CN players hating. Yeah, so it's like they like NTR'd one of the characters too. Yeah, so like now they're making him the cuck. Yeah, they're making Zero the cuck in all the different arts. That's why he's looking like, that's why he out here be looking like that. Yeah, that's what it's not a good look. Yeah, everyone's just pissed right now at this game. Everyone's just pissed right now at this game. But you can kind of guess what's happening, right? The Chinese version comes out a week earlier and then they just get all this fucked up shit. That's really the best way I could describe it. That's truly the best way I could describe it. And then it gets fixed, but they're getting the first iteration and it's always fucked up. And this whole disagreement that they're having in here between these two teams, it's likely the reason for why. This game is a literal disaster. Bro, I think it feels like the management team of this game was vibe hired. Like fucking vibe hired, bro. Their interview process for CEO took like 2 minutes. Now, this is the part that's going to be really juicy. And this is the part you guys are really going to like. Competitor progress and competitive landscape. This is NTE's take on other gacha games, other games in the space, and how their project is going to compare or line up. You guys ready? Enfield has reportedly spent more than 1 billion on user acquisition, but its revenue performance is considered neutral to pessimistic. Its core base building gameplay has failed to establish a viable second growth curve, so it does not pose a significant threat. Dude, imagine that you're getting clowned on by the makers of TOF. Bro, imagine, bro, the fucking TOF devs, bro. They're doing a fucking Fortnite dance all over your body, bro. How do you do that? Why are the TOF devs emoting on you? You're getting emoted on by Hada Studios. Dude, this is embarrassing, but they're not wrong. Bro, they're just right. They're entirely correct. And what they're talking about over here is the insane marketing push that Enfield made to advertise the game like it was a fucking cure for cancer. Bro, that's what they did. They paid basically every single person to play the game on release. And they just pretended the game was good and it was the biggest piece of shit the space has ever seen. Fell off faster, bro. It fell off faster. I'm trying to think of something that fell off faster than. Like bro, it was... Okay. How about instead of me making another analogy, we just take a look at the visuals? Yeah, I think the visuals are gonna do a way better job than I can. Yeah, nah, this is where the 1 billion came from. You can understand why it was so much money, right? Probably spend another billion here. We're just being entirely real. So that's the take from Enfield. Then you got Honor of Kings World. That game is like super Chinese, but it might be good. Then you got Roko Kingdom World. I don't know about this. If I haven't heard about it, it's probably dead. And now we got Ananta. Reportedly has a 2026 release target according to Ding Lei, but has only completed its second closed internal test. If it is to release by the end of 2026, it would need to go through multiple additional rounds of testing. Based on the industry's normal development or testing cadence, this appears difficult to achieve. However, the team needs to watch out for its first public beta, potentially coinciding with this game's public launch. Woo. Yeah, no, they're scared of Ananta, but I think Ananta already killed this game. But we'll see. And now we got competitors such as Silver Palace and Hawkeye Nexus Anima. They are relatively low threats. I think Silver Palace is definitely a bigger threat for this game now than ever before, though. I think it's closer to release than these guys actually think. And now we got Jur Pamili and Varsapura. They're regarded as potential ones, but Former still has substantial content that needs to be reworked, and it's not even going in global. Okay, but as you can see over here, they've got a pretty good, accurate analysis of the competitive landscape. Then you got measures to reduce what's it called? You got measures to remove Japanese elements. I think we've already sort of like covered that. Character and art content upgrades, character modeling and monetization logic. Okay. So let's see some of the, I think this is probably some of the best shit ever over here. During the second beta, the character designs had numerous fundamental problems. The early character models had awkward, inconsistent style. They neither fully embraced a fan service sexualized direction, nor had an authentic anime aesthetic. People mocked them as Frankenstein mashups. So this is basically like their decision making over here to like make their units look better. Maybe it worked, maybe it didn't. I don't really know. But I just remember a clip from me back in the day saying that all the male characters looked like they had sticks shoved up their asses, and like they were standing with posture that was inhumanly straight. So yeah, it looks like they heard some of the feedback from there. Then you got some like art rendering and stuff. And now you got voice actors and IP collaboration. I'm skipping this because I don't think any of you guys give a fuck about physically based rendering and non-photorealistic rendering. Yeah, you guys don't care about that shit. Now you got voice actors and IPs. And I think like this is the part that's like really interesting because these guys have been like going for collabs, a shit ton of collabs and stuff before the game releases. They're focusing like more on things like specific voice actors and collabs and actually making the game good. Like, that's the vibe that I get from this, is that they were focusing more on making this game seem good and look good and have the prestige of looking good, as opposed to actually making it look good. So it's funny that they took shots at Arknight's Enfield, but they just kind of did the same fucking thing. You guys are beginning to sort of like notice what's going on over here, right? These guys are kind of like taking a bunch of like they're kind of like unserious. They're kind of like unserious about like anything regarding the actual game. There's not that much like stuff about like the game or the gameplay in here other than we just stole Wuwa's developers. Remember, that's the big part. We just stole Wuwa's combat team, but obviously not the whole team. Maybe you got like one guy that was an intern there, and that's why it doesn't feel good. It feels like they poached like an intern because the combat and the overall gameplay is the weakest part of this fucking game. And like, they assume that like, I think this actually says a lot. This shows that Kuro Games has a level of prestige in like the game development space where simply saying that you have one of their ex-developers is like a chip on your shoulder. It's something that you can like go to investing firms with as a way for them to invest in your company. We have an ex-Kuro dev. But like, obviously, maybe they like lied about how good that dev was because how's the game so fucked up? Or maybe they're a laid off Kuro dev that got fired because they weren't good at their job. Whatever it is, bro. You can clearly see from all the stuff that's going on in this document over here, bro, they were more so focused on like their competitors than like, it feels like they're more so focused on like their competitors and try to make themselves better than the competition in one way or the other, as opposed to actually making a good game. And I think this monetization system over here, I really want to see this. I really want to see this. The game has completely abandoned MiHoYo's banner pooler model and will use what is described as a more player-friendly gacha system. Feature characters will not lose the 50-50, true. The character drop rate is roughly half that of the MiHoYo system, then reduced by another 25%. Wait, did they just openly admit it's a fake 50-50? The character drop rate is roughly half that of MiHoYo's system. So is this them just saying they're giving out no pulls? This might mean that their like pull rate is going to be half that of other games. So you have no 50-50, but you have half the number of pulls. That's what I read this as. So this is like their long-term vision for the game, I guess. It makes sense though, right? Get your money one way or another. So it seems like they're saying it's got like... Oh my gosh. Like, I don't know what this is supposed to mean. The character drop rate is roughly half that, then reduced by another 25% compared with MiHoYo's system. Maybe this is a mistranslation, but the way that I view this is that their strategy is having no 50-50, and then from there, they're going to really tone down on the number of pulls as the versions go by, so that, well, you basically get characters at the same rate as other games. One character every 3 months, aka a la Genshin. That's what I view this as. Maybe that's the truth. Maybe it's not. Maybe they changed their plans after seeing how badly the game is running right now. Maybe this was their original plan if the game did well. But because it didn't, they decided to not clamp down on the polls. Maybe it's because they saw what happened to Arknight's Enfield, right? Maybe it's because they saw that. Okay, I'm sorry. What is wrong with the Enfield community? Why is it that I looked up Arknight's Enfield poll tracker and the first website I get is Goyfield? What's wrong with you guys? Are you guys good? Like, are you guys good? I'm just, there's something wrong with this community, right? Like, y'all need, I was about to say y'all need Jesus, but like that would have been offensive. Anyways, players will be encouraged towards 1+1 or 2+1 investment levels. I'm not gonna lie, this don't look good, right? This don't look good. Does this mean multiple dupes? Brother, we gotta support games with the 50-50, bro. Hey, if the game doesn't have a 50-50, we gotta support it. Yeah, they're surely not going to fuck over the players one way or another. So they're basically saying they want the average player to get a dupe on the character plus the weapon. Shinku was garbage without dupes. Zenko is garbage without dupes. Wait. So this is actually just, people can confirm this is actually like taking place. Like this is 100% happening. Recent releases like Shinku and Zenko are dog shit without dupes. Well, well, ladies and gentlemen, hey, we gotta get Gacha Smack back again. We gotta get Gacha Smack back up in here again. Hey, it's time for another feature, brother. Hey, it's time for another special. We gotta support the games, bro. We gotta support the games with no 50-50. Hey, let's hear it. Let's hear it. Let's hear it again, Gacha Smack. What do we gotta do about games that don't have the 50-50?
It's important you support these games because that's how you tell future developers we don't want 50-50s in our games.
But this is how NTE is literally supplying the fact that they have 50-50s. Your characters are dog shit unless you get a dupe for them plus their weapon. You need a copy of Shinku because without one, you need to stand still for 5 seconds doing nothing, just dodging to use your kit. And with the dupe, you don't have to stand still for 5 seconds just dodging to use your kit. Oh, okay. So, yeah, they're really heavily encouraging this. They're really heavily encouraging this. So basically, the NTE characters feel like shit without having S1R1, like HSR. Dog shit without dupes. That's their 2 most recent releases, and this guy is saying you need to support this company because they don't have a 50-50. You just need the dupe of a character and their weapon for them to properly function. S1 is the default. Okay, great. I see why there's no 50-50 in this game. You just need to pull 2 copies of every character on release. For weapons, 5-star weapons can be obtained through 3 events, blah, blah, we all know that. 5.5 star signature weapons will have moderate strength and will not force players to pull for them. Okay, that's a little bit contradictory, but I don't think that's the case right now. This is intended to discourage players from hoarding resources infinitely. Constellation dupe design will be optimized, increasing the value of C1 and C2. Oh, so I see. So this is what they're doing. Basically putting the character's kit behind one of their nodes, so you have to pull them. Ah, okay.
It's important you support these games because that's how you tell future developers we don't want 50-50s in our games.
Yeah, this system sounds better. You're right, Griftasmack. You're right, Griftasmack. This system sounds a lot better. And remember, this is from the devs themselves during a fucking investor meeting. And they have actually followed through on this. So, like, you can't even say this is wrong because they're literally doing it. This is all factually confirmed happening in the game based off their 2 latest releases. This is some Joker shit, isn't it? It's some literal Joker shit. So according to an actual investor thesis, NTE has no 50-50. 100% it doesn't. But they're making it so that players are heavily encouraged towards 1+1 or 2+1 investment levels, meaning you gotta get a dupe for them because they're making it so that their kit just doesn't function. That's C1 and C2. They're making it mandatory for the character to not feel like shit to play. And that's the cost of not having a 50-50. Not to mention the fact they're saying some shit over here about how the drop rate is roughly half of Mihoyo's system. And so why don't we listen to this guy once again?
It's important you support these games because that's how you tell future developers we don't want 50-50s in our games.
Yeah, you're right. We want this system instead. Yeah, you need to get a dupe of the character because they really don't want you to hoard resources indefinitely. So they make S6 bad. They make C1 and C2 feel like must pulls. And so you got to get 2 copies of every character on each release. House always wins. And that's the cost of a 50-50. But you'll have grifters like this telling you, well, just support them anyways. Isn't that amazing, bro? Isn't that amazing? That is their future plan for this game and its monetization system. And remember, this was speculation before because this originally came out in January. But they have followed through on everything in here. They followed through on this. They're doing and they did 90% of the things that are in this monetization system section. And NTE players themselves will be able to tell you that. Oh boy. All right, now that y'all like some overseas revenue breakdowns and outlook, stuff like that, I guess this is the fucking thing. Somebody should go ahead and like double check these to see if they hit any of their marks. Personally, I don't fucking care, and I think they missed all of them. So like, I'm not gonna double check it. We all know that the game isn't doing that well right now. It's getting ripped apart in CN. For fucking sure. Now there's like all this other stuff regarding like outlook. This is all like forecasting. I think it's absolutely useless for us to take a look at some of this stuff. But what about the potential risks? Because I like this part. Mobile optimization. Player acceptance of paid open world functionality. There is uncertainty whether players will accept monetized open world functions. Oh, that sounds interesting. Oh, it sounds like a fun little plan for the future. Who knows? Maybe they'll monetize some of the stuff in the overworld real soon once they start getting a little bit desperate. Another thing to mention over here is that, again, this is an investor thesis sort of like report. There's no mention at all of anything regarding generative AI, any of that stuff in here. So, yeah, that was something that they hid from the banks as well. And guys, remember, this is how the game is doing in CN, via CN websites. They really don't like the whole NTR situation. They really don't like the NTR situation. They're pissed off, bro. They're not spending any money because of that. That's not a good look. And obviously, it's not a good look when your character that's also the plagiarist releases like that, because now it looks like people aren't spending money because they think you're creative, you just copied other games, when in reality they're not spending money because you NTR'd the players. But maybe it's a little bit of both. But the end result is that it looks like there is divine retribution hitting this company. It looks like an active god is like smiting these retards off the planet, and the timing couldn't be better, especially after finding out that these guys are really just the most talentless hacks in the space. Truly. And I think after that article, it's even more obvious than ever how badly these guys blew it. Let me know what you all thought. Peace out.